Colonel Jonathan Buck settled Bucksport, Maine, then called Plantation 1, in 1763. He built the first sawmill there and the first general store. Colonel Buck was a war hero and a leader in the community, a politically powerful citizen. Although the most commonly remembered witch trial victims are of the men and women murdered in neighboring Salem, Massachusetts, that swept the colonies in the early years of European settlement in America, many more also died at the stake, by noose, or crushed to death in an effort to cleanse their souls and their townships. Ida Black was the mistress of Colonel Jonathan Buck. According to some accounts, she was as beautiful as the colonel was arrogant and hard-hearted. When her looks began to fade and he grew tired of her, it is said he arranged to have her accused of witchcraft. Another version of Ida paints the picture of an old, unattractive, eccentric woman who lived alone without friends or family to defend her against the witch accusations. Further still, Ida has been described as an Indian woman whose husband had been shot in the back during an argument with Colonel Buck. Regardless of her physicality, Ida Black was burned at the stake by her former lover, who ignited the wood piled at her feet. It is said the last agonizing words of the accused, uttered at the apex of extreme emotional distress, was a curse. "Though you may slay me now, my colonel," she recited, "I shall come back and dance upon your gravestone while you roast in hell." The curse haunted Colonel Buck through the remainder of his life. On March 18, 1795, at 76 years old, he passed away. His remaining family members took extreme measures in selecting a perfect, unblemished stone for his final memorial. His tombstone would be the finest in Buck Cemetery. On the anniversary of the accused witch's death, the image of a woman's bare, dancing foot and lower leg began to form against the colonel's once perfect tombstone. Colonel Buck's family ordered the stone sanded and cleaned, but the image remained. In total, the stone was sanded and cleaned more than 12 times, and the image always would return within a few hours after the work was completed. The Buck family finally ordered a brand new headstone. A few days after the new stone was placed on the grave, Ida Black's footprint began slowly forming once again. A third headstone was ordered and replaced the former, and still stands in the cemetery today, complete with Ida Black's dancing footprint above Colonel Jonathan Buck's name forevermore. In the spring of 1817, in tiny Adams, Tennessee, the spirit of Kate Batts arrived at the pious Bell family homestead, which consisted of John Bell, a farmer, his wife Lucy, and their 6 children. It's been said Kate was one of Lucy Bell's nieces, a neighbor to the Bell family. Kate Batts had a bone to pick with John from beyond the grave over either a land deal gone sour or a slave deal, and she would not let it fall to the wayside. On her deathbed, she swore she would come back and haunt John and his kin to their graves. In the beginning, the witch was seen as animal familiars, a black dog-like creature, a huge bird, or a rabbit. Inside the Bell home, tapping on the walls was consistent as well as the windows. Moans and cries were heard from the chimneys, and the house shook. Daughter Betsy Bell was accosted relentlessly. She was pinched, her cheeks were slapped, and her hair was tangled and pulled. Her covers were violently ripped off the bed at night. Richard Bell, John's youngest son, recounts at age 6 that the slaps from the witch were heard distinctly, like the open palm of a heavy hand, and the sting was keenly felt. The Bell family tried to keep the poltergeist activity a secret until it became intolerable. When the news finally broke of the witch, Andrew Jackson, then a general, traveled 40 miles from Nashville to experience for himself the alleged Bell witch. He bet a gallon of good whiskey that the witch didn't exist. When he was about a mile from the property, Jackson's buggy wheels locked up and wouldn't budge. Him and his men heard a voice exclaiming from a bush beside the road, "You can move on now, General Jackson. I'll see you tonight." Jackson spent the night at the Bells, thoroughly enjoying a face-off with the witch, the only haunting ever investigated by a state government. The Bell witch claimed to be different things at different times. She once said she was a spirit millions of years old. Another time she had made a claim that she had rested comfortably for years before returning from her grave on the farm, seeking revenge because John's son Drury and his friend Corbin Haw had dug up a part of her jawbone and knocked out a tooth. The tooth was missing and she wanted it back. John Bell and his children spent the rest of the day looking for the missing tooth, to no avail. Still, John wanted to make good with the witch. He and his older boys dug up the woman's remaining bones, reunited them with the jawbone, and called in a preacher to lay her to rest in a local cemetery for a proper Christian burial. The Bells' efforts did nothing to placate old Kate. She wanted John to suffer. A few days after, he did. He became emaciated, his tongue swelled until he could hardly eat or speak. He could barely swallow water. Clergy prayed over him. Doctors were left perplexed on how to treat John's affliction. When John died on December 21st, 1820, a vial with black-colored poison was found near his bedside. The Bell Witch rejoiced with laughter and song upon his interment. The Bell Witch's final appearance took place after the family's dinner one evening. Son Richard recounts something like a cannonball rolled down the chimney and out into the room, bursting into a ball of smoke. A voice called out, "I am going, and will be gone for 7 years. Goodbye to all." The witch indeed returned 7 years later. The disturbances were slight, and then she left them alone forever. The original Bell homestead no longer stands, only a replica. People have reported currently hearing voices, human and animal, and seeing shadows in the cave nearby, which is nestled on Indian burial ground. The cave is speculated to be a thoroughway between this dimension and the next.